Hogstye.
Everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Hogstye. It's done. The draft has happened. We've got a bunch of new players to put on this roster. Exciting draft. We were very highly graded from what I've seen by outside people. Who was it? I saw Next Gen Stats had us tied with the Eagles as the best draft class, in their opinion. So, that's always nice, even though I know, Steve, you hate those kind of sites. Steve Thomas with me. Jamal is out in the quarantine. We don't know where is he going? What is he doing right now?
Maybe he's trapped in a quarantine area without his laptop.
Yeah, he's in a bubble.
That's the only thing I can think of.
One of those giant hamster Nerf bubbles, or not Nerf, foam bubbles that you see people rolling around in these days.
It's Jamal the Bubble Boy.
Jamal the Bubble Boy. Steve, give me your first take on this draft, and then we're going to kind of break it down and go player by player.
Okay, yeah, first of all, I hate draft grades, especially by sites like that. I just think it's sort of pointless. I mean, to do draft grades when it's 5 minutes after the draft. That's dumb. But my general overall point is that the Redskins had a clear and distinct plan this year. Unlike many other years, it really just seemed in the past like, Bruce Allen and Jay Gruden just weren't on the same page at all. It was just Bruce dictating and handing Jay players that he didn't want and that they hadn't talked about. That's not what this was at all. It was very clear from the comments of Ron Rivera and Kyle Smith, and I read all of them because we get them all, that they were clearly on the same page. They executed a plan. They wanted playmakers. They wanted to fill some holes. And against my better advice, they had planned from Chase Young from day one. And so they really got exactly what they wanted. That I applaud them. I think that bodes well for the future.
I agree. I think you bring up an interesting point in that the last couple years, whenever you'd hear about a draft class, it was, this coach or this scout was standing on the table for X player. And we heard it more often about the guys who worked out. Like you heard Jay Gruden was a big Matt Ioannidis guy. So that's why we got You never heard it about a first-round pick, by the way.
No.
And I think the reason for that is Bruce or Dan Snyder was dictating those and saying, you're picking this guy, shut up.
That's what we heard about Dwayne Haskins.
Right. We heard that about Haskins, that's for sure.
Yeah, it seemed like Jay never liked Jay Haskins. Jay didn't like Jay didn't like Dwayne Haskins very much. We hear that the owner loved him because his kid knew him and all this stuff.
Right.
And that's all that's in the past. And let's not beat that up. But the point is, there was a congruent front. Should I say it like that?
United front.
Yeah, united. Congruent would be, that they're side by side, But yeah, there was certainly a united front. That's a better way to say it. And they had a plan, and they knew what they were going for. Because if you look at all these players from top to bottom, what it screams is playmaker.
It screams playmaker, and it screams to me. We're going to start seeing a very different offensive scheme starting to come about from this team.
Absolutely.
And I think we're going to see similar on defense because let's get into that as we go through some of these players. So,
before you move on, before you start that, though, it's a good point about the scheme. We sort of know what Scott Turner wants: power, right, power run game, but with a variety of athletic weapons. Look what they did with Christian McCaffrey. They turned him into a do-everything guy, and we're going to get to that. We've drafted
a guy like that,
Christian McCaffrey's, lesser-known clone, and so they have a lot of guys like that, and that's what we're going to see from Scott Turner. I think power with the running backs, doing a lot of things and a lot of athletic weapons, and that's what we saw.
There's a lot of receivers that we kind of picked up here, and they're all very different kinds of receivers, which I find interesting as well, because, whereas I always kind of like seeing, hey, I like this type of receiver for my quarterback, so I get like 4 of them. Yeah. This is the opposite direction. I have, I think, 6 receivers now on this roster that I'm looking at that all do different skill sets.
Yeah.
Which there's merit to that kind of offense too. It's just, it's a philosophy thing, I guess, and that's going to be their philosophy. All right, so let's get into this. We're going to just kind of go through the draft class in order, folks, so bear with us. I know you all probably know the guy at top, Chase Young. We've talked about him to death here. He's been talked about to death from every Redskins site and podcast, radio show.
He's that pass rusher guy, right?
Yeah, pass rusher. So I don't know how much we can say about him that hasn't already been said at this point. But I want to get your reactions, Steve, because I know you were really kind of pushing. You wanted them to go with the linebacker, Simmons, or trade back. But they ended up doing what everyone said is the safe thing, and that is just taking the best guy in the draft.
Okay. First of all, it didn't really click with me until about a month ago for some reason that part of the reason why everybody's in love with him is that he's from the D.C. area. I knew that somewhere in the back of my head, but it didn't really click with me because I'm not in D.C., as you know, Alex, and most people know I live in Texas. And so, I realized about a month or so ago that everybody's been watching this kid since high school, and, that's part of the reason why everybody's in love with him. I understand that. Look, my feelings on him haven't really changed, and I've said it, a lot. He's an elite prospect. I watch his film. He does amazing things. He reminds me of Julius Peppers. I think that's his comp to me. He's not fast. He's not going to part of the reason why he didn't run the 40 at the Combine is that actually would have hurt him. He ran, ESPN had him listed coming out of high school at about 4.94. That's out of high school. It would have improved. You'd have to think he probably would have been in the 4.8 range maybe. He's put on
4.8, 4.7, yeah. Something like
right.
That.
So he's not a burner. He is sort of a good comp of Julius Peppers. I think if anybody has a good chance of being great, it's always a coin flip, as I've proved over the last month with my combine or draft analysis columns. Even the best prospects fail. Courtney Brown failed. Jadeveon Clowney failed. Other players have succeeded. So he has probably a better chance than most at succeeding. That having been said, I still think that, the Redskins would have been better served going a different direction. Everybody's going to hate me for it, and that's fine. But, having an elite corner, Jeff Okudah, or that linebacker, Simmons, I think would have done more for the Redskins. But that having been said, now that he's on the team, I'm all about it. I'm glad he's here. And I think what we'll see in the future, for the near-term future in 2020, is I think Ryan Kerrigan will probably start. They're going to rotate Young in. And I say that not just because I'm being sour about my, it didn't what I wanted didn't happen. It's because Ron Rivera explicitly said they're looking at 40 to 45 snaps per game for him. So that tells me it's a rotation. It tells me he's probably not the starter. It's probably going to be Kerrigan out of respect, but they will rotate in, pretty evenly. So
right. You now have three very good pass rushers, Kerrigan, Sweat, and Young. So you can have a very solid rotation where they're all getting about that number of 40, 45 snaps a game.
Yeah,
because, you have, 60 snaps on average, 65?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah. So you divide that, or you multiply it by 2, so you get 120, and then divide it by 3. What do you get?
Yeah, because they're going to, because I don't necessarily think Steven Montez. Montez.
No,
we're
Montez
Sweat. We're getting to him.
Steven Montez is way down on our list.
We're going to get to him. I don't necessarily think Montez Sweat is locked into the blind side. And remember that Ryan Kerrigan has been on the defensive left side for years because he's deaf in one ear. I think that's a big part of it. But I think they'll be rotated, more so. And this is the most important thing, though. The Redskins actually, no matter what you guys think, the Redskins have actually had a good pass rush. A lot of it's because of interior pressure. I saw John Kine put out a stat about quarterback pressures being low. His stat was wrong. Sorry, John, your stat was wrong. They actually were like third in the NFL in quarterback total, what PFR defines as quarterback pressures. But it's going to get a lot better next year, not just because of Chase Young, but because when you have the guys who used to be the out-of-place 3-4 linebackers are now pass-rushing defensive ends 100% of the time. That's going to, all by itself, would improve things. So add in, at a minimum, even if Young does not live up to expectations, let's hope he does, even if he doesn't, you're talking about a much fresher three decent pass rushers at a bare minimum coming off the edge that just flat out weren't there last
year.
year.
Yeah, and I think you combine that with Matt Ioannidis, who's a very good interior pressure guy,
right.
Jonathan Allen, a very good interior pressure guy, and then Payne can come in and kind of be your run stuffer, which is, I think, his stronger suit. He's not as much of a pressure guy on the pass, but
even he got a couple sacks last year.
Yeah, he's no slouch.
I didn't look this up because it would have taken me too long. I think I would have had to do it manually. But I have to think that the Redskins' interior defensive line is getting more pressure than almost any other group, I would think.
And for a 3-4 last year, they were lights out the best at
You would
that.
have to think, yeah. I don't have the numbers, but I'd have to think
I don't have it either. But I think Ioannidis, Payne, and Allen all combined for something like 17 sacks. It was high.
I mean, the bottom line is for this is that the defensive front is now set for the foreseeable future. I think frankly, Allen or Payne probably won't be here in the next maybe 2 seasons because they can't really afford
can't keep them all.
Yeah, they can't afford to have a non-starter on a huge contract. And Allen and Payne are both going to get big contracts. They drafted 3 defensive linemen like this because they had a 3-4 front. And it doesn't really fit the way it is. And so one of them is going to be gone. But the point is, their defensive front is going to be set, and it better be awesome considering the amount of draft capital they put into it.
The last thing I'll say about Young before we move on, because we got to move on, you gave a good comp, but one that I kind of saw while watching some tape of him, his playing style reminds me very much of Brian Arakpo in that he loves to rush the outside shoulder more and try and get around guys that way. Whereas, with Sweat and Kerrigan, they're both more bull rush types. They try and stay on their guy, cut in or out, depending on what's going on. Young reminds me more of Arakpo, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, people kind of got down on Arakpo towards the end of his time here, but remember his first couple of years here, he was a dominant pass rusher.
And he became a solid player for the Titans later, too. Just remember, I agree with you, but my response to that would be that Young is young. He needs coaching, and nobody thinks that he's a fully formed pass rusher. Even, the guys who are the big-time football people have said, Young does need work on some different, he
needs to build up some bulk.
Right.
Because he's probably more of a linebacker body.
So I think what you're seeing now is somebody that's going to get better as time goes on.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's move on to pick number 66, Antonio Gibson. What he lines up at, I don't know yet because they've listed him as a running back. They've listed him as a wide receiver.
I know.
He is going to kind of be the Swiss Army man for this team. He liked to just say, "I'm a weapon," in his interview I saw. So he's going to be an interesting one. People are saying he's our poor man Christian McCaffrey, and we've got a couple of those we've found in free agency too. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. What I see is a guy who's a natural third down back like Chris Thompson, who can also split out wide, Steve. And, he's a little bigger than Chris Thompson was. I think he's, 6'0", or is he 6'1"?
He's 6 foot 228. Memphis had him listed at 6'1", but the combine, they had him at 6 foot.
Okay, so 6 foot, 221 or 228, whatever. So big guy, kind of a running back build, but bigger than Thompson was.
I don't think he's an NFL wide receiver. He's pretty. I watched his film, or some of it. Obviously, not a ton in one day, but his route running skills are pretty raw in his footwork and whatnot. And it's not a slam on him. I just think he's a running back. The reason being, if you watch him move in space, he's got this Barry Sanders thing going. When he's in traffic. And yes, I just said Barry Sanders, spare me. You guys know what I mean. He runs kind of like that in traffic. He's
a lot of zigzagging.
He's very explosive. He's a human pinball. I think he's going to be. I truly think that Ron Rivera in his post-draft comments mentioned Christian McCaffrey as a comparison multiple times when he was talking about Antonio Gibson. They clearly see him in that role. He's much more than just a third down back to me. He is going to be there, do everything back. I think you're going to see him split out in the slot a lot.
Right.
You're going to see him running, wheel routes out of the backfield a lot.
I can see a lot of motion work with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think these running backs that they have on the roster now are on notice, man. I think they love Antonio Gibson. Just from a stats perspective, real fast on him, the knock on him really is he's inexperienced. Okay, he spent 2 years at a community college, only played 19 games with Memphis, and Memphis also isn't playing Oklahoma.
No. They're a AAC team, so
right,
yeah,
right, and it's not a knock on Memphis, but it's just a different level of competition. But 33 carries, 369 yards, 11.2 yards per carry, 44 receptions, 834 yards, 19 yards per reception, which is a wild number.
Both those numbers are wild. What was that? Yards per carry?
11.2. Crazy. Right.
Those are cartoon numbers.
Yeah. He's also, he was the Memphis' primary kick returner last year. 23 kick returns, 645 yards, ran one back for a touchdown, 4.3940. NFL.com's website said that was an unofficial number for whatever that means, but let's go with 439. Memphis ran a power scheme. Not a zone scheme. Remember, zone scheme is move laterally, cut back against the grain.
Right, one cut. Yeah.
Yeah. This guy's sort of he's used to a power scheme. He doesn't run people over as much as he evades people. Yeah.
He's going to look to see what his blocking setups from what I saw. He's not, and even though he's got decent speed. That 4.39 actually sounds faster than what I saw when I was watching some of the tape of him. I don't think he's a breakaway guy. Like, he's not going to leave everyone in the dust very often.
He did it at Memphis, but it was Memphis.
Yeah, I'm watching Memphis and seeing, that's not going to happen in the NFL.
Right.
The thing I saw that I like with him is he did a lot of running out of shotgun, which we've been doing a lot of as the Redskins, and I think we'll be doing it more for reasons we'll get to. So I think you need guys with that experience because it's a little thing, but I think there is a difference between a running back who runs out of single back or I form or whatever versus a guy who's getting the ball from a shotgun and then going forward.
It's Adrian Peterson versus is the former.
Right.
Gibson is the latter. Yeah, I truly think they view him as Christian McCaffrey. Again, Rivera said that unprompted. Christian McCaffrey.
And you can see it. It makes a lot of sense.
And this is Scott Turner's scheme. This is what they did at Carolina. They're trying to duplicate Carolina. And I think they have very high hopes for Antonio Gibson. He dropped on the draft because he hasn't played a lot, and he played at Memphis.
Right. And I understand the logic there. But, that's where you find your diamonds is stuff like
Sometimes.
that. All right, so let's move on. We're now into day 3. Day 3 started out with a big news, and that is that Trent Williams was finally traded. I told you guys it wouldn't happen day 1 or day 2. But the 49ers took Trent Williams, gave us a 5th-rounder this year, a 3rd next year. Pretty big loss from the 2nd we were offered last season, in my opinion. But at least we got something for him, and we can move on.
I think they could have got a 2nd out of the Vikings if Trent hadn't tanked the Vikings trade rumors. Remember, on Saturday morning, the news, I think it was Saturday morning or Friday night, the news broke that Ian Rappaport flat out called Trent Williams' agent a liar on ESPN, live on ESPN, and said that Trent told the Vikings, there was a trade set up and done, and Trent told the Vikings he didn't want to go to Minnesota. Now, again, Ian Rappaport said that. The agent put out a statement in writing that said that's not true. Rappaport said the agent's lying. We don't know which is the truth or not. But I think Trent did a lot to tank his value, and I think a 3rd and a 5th is actually kind of a crappy return. It's maybe worth it just to get rid of him and be done and move on, and I get that part of it, but it's a crappy return that could have been better if in my view, Trent's agent had handled this differently. I think they would have got the 2nd rounder this offseason that they wanted.
I mean, the reports last season were they were getting offered a 2nd, and the team turned it down. I think, we'll maybe hash that out a different time. But I think this whole thing is an example of how not to manage a roster, and it'll go down in history as one of the worst mismanagements of the Redskins' history, which is saying something.
Well, I'm not going to pretend like I didn't say what I said a year ago.
Yeah.
What I said a year ago is there's no reason to trade him right now, and I think that was still the right thing. And I think if this had been handled differently, they could have gotten the second-round pick in this draft.
But it was handled poorly all the way around.
It was, but they would have had to handle it correctly. But if everybody had done so, and at this point I'm putting probably more of the blame on Trent than on the Redskins, but they both were at fault. If everybody had done the right thing, I think they could have gotten a second-round pick out of somebody.
Maybe, but I mean, it is what it is now.
It is what it is. He's gone. It's definitely better that he's gone. And you could tell that both Ron and Kyle Smith are absolutely sick and tired of it, and they just wanted to get him out of the building.
I think all 10 million people in the D.C. metro area are tired of it.
and like Quentin Dunbar can't shut up.
Right.
You saw that he's putting stuff out on his Instagram of, let's show them what they're missing. Well, dude, Quentin, if you're listening, remember, you wanted to leave.
Right.
I don't know what you want to prove to anybody when you wanted to leave. I think that's just ridiculous. And I think Quentin
don't blame
Dunbar
us for your issues.
Yeah, Quentin Dunbar especially has got a major attitude problem, and good riddance to you, dude. We don't.
I don't know where that came from either, man. Like, he was fine the first 4 years here.
Yeah.
But, something went south quick. Well, okay, so let's move on because the draft started not long after we got that news. And the Redskins had a very early pick in the 4th round, and what did they do? They drafted Trent's replacement in Sadiq Charles, offensive tackle out of LSU. Watching him, okay, he's not Trent Williams. Like, let's be honest, he's a 4th-round pick for a reason. But he looks like he could be at least a capable, fill-in for a year or two and maybe develop from there. Solid pass blocking from what I saw. You posted something not long ago, just before we started the show, about some quote of his about finding the quarterback's release point, and that's key to him for his success, which I found, kind of insightful for a young guy. The one thing I think that you're going to notice, he is not going to be that freak of nature mauler in the run blocking game, getting downfield 40 yards, putting on hits on safeties. But
I mean, he can do that, actually. But, look, he's not Trent Williams. Nobody says he's Trent Williams. Just stop. It's not fair to compare him to Trent.
It's not fair to compare 90,000 people to Trent,
Right. And Trent is an elite talent. He's a borderline Hall of Fame level talent, and that's just not fair. Now, let's be clear. Sadiq Charles dropped some in the draft because of character concerns. And I think he was hurt by the fact that there wasn't really a pre-draft run-up where he could have explained himself better.
Sure.
He got in trouble a couple times at LSU for drugs. And let's spare me people either complain about, should drugs be punished and blah, blah, blah. The point is this happened. Okay? And that's why he was suspended twice. And that's why people thought he had a character concern. Don't forget that Robbie Duncan, 3 weeks ago on our show, is like touting Sadiq Charles about how good he is.
His playing ability is not in question.
Now, here's what I see from a playing ability perspective. He moves pretty well. He moves laterally very well. He's athletic. He's agile. His 40 time is pretty good for a left tackle. And Mark Bullock put out a play where he was running 50 yards downfield, chasing down defensive backs. I think where he gets in trouble is he's not a mauler.
No. He's a technique guy more than the mauler.
Yeah, he's not a power guy, and all the critics, who know more, who are the dedicated professional line critics types, said that he lacks core power, and so that's where he's going to have to improve. I don't know if he's a day one starter. They may need him to be, but I don't know if he should be a day one starter necessarily. His hand placement is bad. Mm-hmm. Mark Bullock, this from Mark, not from me. I didn't notice this. Mark noticed that his hand placement is consistently bad, so it's a technique problem. He's good footwork, bad hands. He's going to need some coaching. He's going to need to get in the right and get with the trainer and improve his body to improve his power. But he's got a lot of promise, and I trust Robbie Duncan's view of offensive linemen.
I mean. And I would like to ask a guy like Robbie this, because you or I probably are not the best people to answer this question.
Not about
what is more key in the end? Is it the footwork or the handwork? Because I feel like the footwork's probably even harder to adjust. We saw that with who was our guard last year? The guy who
Flowers.
Flowers never got his footwork right playing tackle, and that was his problem.
Yeah.
So, if your footwork's okay, I feel like we can improve the handwork.
I think they may need to have to try to sign Donald Penn for another year.
It might not hurt to have somebody like that to start the season and let this guy finish, that kind of thing.
Because I just think it's too important. Mm-hmm. I'm really glad that they drafted Sadiq Charles because I think Sadiq Charles is better than a fourth-round pick. I really do. I think he's a better
and he can be groomed up, I think.
Yeah, exactly. He's a legit has legit starter potential, and that's what they needed. But at the same time, I think it's risky when you're talking about Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, I agree.
Year, young guy. This is not Tom Brady back there. So I think they need a real pro.
I agree with you, and I think that's a smart move. I think you also are going to want to make sure that you're putting a tight end on that side if he's starting a lot. Give him some help. Early on.
Can't be there all the time. That's the problem.
Not all the time, but when you can, as much as possible, give him a little chip.
Now, by the way, the rumor is that Jason Peters wants to go to a contender.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and which isn't the Redskins, obviously. So
no.
It may be, and we don't know if Donald Penn even wants to play again. By the way, for those of you out there counting on Donald Penn, and you know who you are in all this, Donald Penn was okay last year. He was a Jag. He did fine. But he's a year older. We don't even know if he wants to play, and we don't know if somebody else is going to offer him money.
The last thing I'll say about Charles, I saw that somewhere Rivera said that he's also going to work him out a little bit at guard, too, because I guess that's much like with Brandon Scherff. I assume there's a plan A, tackle, plan B, we can move you inside kind of thing.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Ron seems to be all about versatility. And the one thing about Charles is that his arms are shorter. His arms are measured at 33, and the ideal is 34. Joe Thomas had 33-inch arms, by the way. So Joe Thomas is going to be in the Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Famer.
Right.
So it's not some kind of oh my God, you can't, period.
That's one of those things that I've never understood with, the difference of an inch in your arm length should not.
Well, it's kind of like everything, though. It's at some point there has to be a break point, and and the obvious reason is left tackles need to
I
use their
understand
hands
that
a lot. So his arms are shorter at 33, which means his technique will have to be better. Let's say it like that.
Right. And like we said, if he's got good leg work, you can hopefully work on that handwork.
Right.
All right, let's move forward. Second pick of day 3, pick 142. Antonio Gandy Golden, wide receiver out of Liberty, 6'4", 223, filling a missing piece in this receiving puzzle because we really didn't have a big man last year. We have
Kelvin
guys who
Harmon says hi.
Well, is Kelvin Harmon really considered a big man, though?
Bigger.
Yeah, he's not, but he's not 6'4".
No.
I went and watched some highlights of him. It'll be interesting to see how he's used. I think he's a good red zone weapon. I don't see him getting separation in the NFL very often. Maybe shades of Josh Doxson like that, where you got a big guy who's not going to get open, but he can win you some jump balls. Some interesting facts I found out about him watching some highlights. He was a gymnast before he was a football player, so that explains some of the athletic ability that you see there. And he's also incredibly cerebral. He runs around with Rubik's Cubes all the time. He's always just playing with a Rubik's Cube. And he says he can figure one out in up to 45 seconds.
He's one of those Rubik's Cubes geniuses.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. I work with 2 guys like that, by the way. All they do is sit at their computers all day and play with Rubik's Cubes.
Oh, really? Because I don't even have – I had one at one point in time, and I've always wanted to fiddle with it and figure out – because there's a technique to it. There's a pattern.
There absolutely is. And once you figure out the technique, you can do it quickly.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of figuring out the pattern. Look, Gandy Golden, if you watch his film, it's like, holy cow, look what this kid does. He makes wow catches.
Right.
One-handed grabs. He's really good in the, at the venerable 50-50 ball, stuff. And Breezen, by the way, there's 2 reasons why he had to do that so much at Liberty. One is the quarterback sucked. Right.
Well, he's at Liberty, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to him. And by the way, the guy's name was Stephen Buckshot Calvert, for God's sakes.
That was his nickname, or
no? Yeah, I don't know if it was a nickname or not. They called him Buckshot Calvert. That was the quarterback at Liberty.
That's not what you want as your nickname as a quarterback.
It means you're spraying stuff all over everywhere. Right. But any point is, the kid had a weak, doesn't have an NFL arm, and so the ball was constantly underthrown, which caused these situations. And you're right in saying I don't think Gandy Golden is not going to separate.
No.
He's running a 4.5,
I think 4.6.
4.6 range, but he doesn't accelerate well. He doesn't have burst. He's big, and he's going to have to use his body to get contested catches. Fortunately, like you said, he's a very smart guy, and he's a wow catch guy.
And the gymnast thing, I think, is great because, like, there's videos of him just doing somersaults all the way across a football field. Like,
he can contort his body in ways that you and I, and 99% of the public, cannot do.
If you or I do it, we were probably on the couch for a week afterwards with a back thrown out.
Yeah, first of all, we wouldn't be able to do it, period. And then we would also have a major back problem. Yes.
Right. And that's not just because we're getting old.
No, it's because he has athletic ability for a receiver that makes up for the fact somewhat that he does not have speed, burst, and acceleration. So I think really, if it all goes well for him, he may not be a big-time Deshaun Jackson vertical threat. Hopefully you can turn him into a possession receiver.
Right.
That in a goal line red zone threat. Yeah.
So the one thing I heard he's actually very good with, and fans might hate this, he's a great fade ball catcher. That's his strength. So I know how much we all hate the fade here from the Gruden years, but if we can finally have a receiver who can do it, which we never did with Gruden, that was part of the problem.
Okay.
This guy could be that guy.
One thing we didn't mention with him. He's got a humongous catch radius, and the reason is he's got a 36-inch vertical leap, and he's already 6'4", and he's got long arms. And so this is a dude who has a much bigger catch radius than most NFL receivers, and that's one of his benefits. That's why you said he's a great red zone threat. That's why he's a fade threat. In the end zone fade. And Jay's gone, but you assume they're going to use that sometimes. So he's the playmaker. The guy's another playmaker, like Gibson, just in a different way, but he's another playmaker.
Gibson's the guy you're going to have on the field a lot between the 20s, as they like to say, and this is the guy who maybe comes in once you're in the red zone to be that big target.
I think Andy Golden competes for an outside receiver role. I don't think he's a slot receiver. He's an X, maybe is he. Type guy. So we'll see.
I don't think he's a speed guy. So yeah,
no.
But I definitely, you maybe put him in a slot in selected plays, but not often.
They wanted playmakers.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I see what this guy can do, and I like it. So I'm not going to complain. All right, next up, pick 156, Keith Ishmael, center out of San Diego State University. 6'3",
call me Ishmael.
Yeah, call him Ishmael. Hopefully things work out better for him.
Does anybody know the reference? Speak up if you know the reference. Not you, Alex.
I would hope that our fans know the reference to one of the greatest literary masterpieces in history.
You've seen the people in our comment section?
Yes, I have. I know.
Okay. Most of them are morons.
And we love you, but you're morons.
No, we don't. Most of them I don't love you, and we're just using you for clicks.
All right. So Ishmael, I think we both have said this in the past. We're not O-line experts. I tried watching some tape of him. I'll tell you, the stuff I saw, good one-on-one blocks, can hold his own okay. A lot more, as a center, he does a lot more of the whole kind of chipping on the guys for the guards, which is, the one punch, kind of just maintaining the pocket as best he can. I didn't see him getting to the second level in anything I saw. Which, again, he's a center. I don't think that's the end of the world. You want a center who can pull, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have one, as long as your guards can kind of take on that stuff. But, he's a prospect.
Yeah, most of the professional O-line guys, which we can't emphasize enough is not us, think of Ishmael as a guy who's agile and he's best suited in a zone scheme rather than a power scheme.
Which
that was
doesn't
kind of the word
fit us very well right now.
No, not really. But, Ron Rivera and Kyle Smith know better than – they know what they want better than some dude who writes for a magazine.
Sure.
Here's what immediately went through my head, with Ishmael.
Aside from references to classic literature?
Right. And we're not going to say what it is because you guys need to figure it out on your own. Chase Roullier is in a contract year.
Right.
Maybe they don't want to pay him.
It could be
Ishmael's going to have a shot at grabbing a starting role. Lots of centers come from down in the draft.
Yeah.
You don't often see centers, and I say this knowing that who was it that drafted the center? Oh, God. The one that had his girlfriend ripped off of his lap by his mother.
I don't.
He's a center. The name's but that blows my theory out of the water. But a lot of centers aren't highly drafted guys, and I think that Ismail's going to have a unique opportunity to maybe take Chase Rouillet's job, depending on how he does. The other thing about him is he's versatile. He had multiple starts at guard and center at San Diego State.
Well,
he's versatile. He's a versatile guy, and Ron Vera explicitly mentioned that in his post-draft comments.
So I mean, if you think about it, Chase Rouillet was brought in as a late-round prospect to replace, who was it, Spencer Long, who was our center before that?
Yes.
And
well, there was one more in there, too.
Well, there might have been. But,
yeah.
I mean, we've been kind of just doing this. Every 3 years, we pick up a new center, let him replace the guy who's there, and then move on,
Right.
They've not historically been a team that ever wants to pay a center or really any kind of interior lineman, which, that's just a philosophy thing, I guess, in the end. At some point, I do feel like you're better off if you have a franchise quarterback or a guy like Haskins that you want to be your franchise guy. You want to kind of find a center that he can play with for a couple years, because that quarterback-center relationship is one that you don't want to mess with after a while. But I don't think we're at that point yet with Haskins. So,
by the way, I was talking about Isaiah Wilson, who got drafted by the Tennessee Titans. If you haven't watched the video, it's great because there's a close-up shot of Isaiah, like shoulders up on the couch. And his girlfriend has, like, draped herself all over him. And out of the picture, you see mom screaming at her, and a hand comes in and just rips this girl off of her completely. And Isaiah's sitting there like, I don't want any part of this.
You and I were talking about that.
He utterly cannot win at all in that situation.
No. Any man who's been in that situation knows.
Yeah, it just was really funny.
And I think every man has been in that situation at one point.
Except we haven't had the girlfriend ripped off of our laps on national television.
Not quite so literally, but we've all been there.
Yeah, definitely.
You said something during, I think it was day one, that I thought was funny, how a lot of these girlfriends are clearly trying to stake their claim in the videos.
It's like
it was just so much worse this year than most years.
This is my man. I'm about to be rich. Not to say they're all gold diggers, but
like I said, it's all true love, Steve.
The immortal words of Kanye West. I ain't saying she's a gold digger.
Yeah,
but she ain't with a broke person,
Steve and I suddenly stole on not wanting to repeat the Kanye West lyrics.
You and I are not allowed to say the word he used in the actual song.
No,
but I think
we are not.
You get the point.
Yes. But it was funny to see a couple of those highlighted.
It was just so obvious that as soon as you watch, cameras on,
right.
Okay, let me grab
Suddenly
it.
this 10 model looking chick just shows up next to the guy.
Well, the other one that was funny was
the girl who got her phone snatched. Yeah.
He just snatched her phone right out of his hand. That was funny. But the point is, Ishmael, back to Ishmael, I think Ishmael actually has a chance to start next year, and I think he's got a 1-year window
to develop. Yeah,
because either they're going to sign Chase Rouillet to a long-term contract or let him go. And this is the guy who's on the roster who's a true dedicated center. So, dude, you have 1 year to prove yourself, in my view.
Now, that said, also good cheap depth. Anytime you're drafting linemen like this, it's cheap depth, which you need.
I'm more worried about the left guard than I am center at this point. I don't know.
I am too.
Everybody loves Wes Martin, but there's no real reason to love Wes Martin because we haven't really seen him much. And Ross Piersbacher is the other guy. I remember
Piersbacher's also actually a center too, technically.
Yeah, I remember Mark Bullock on our show a year ago wasn't high on Piersbacher.
Yeah,
maybe
but he's still around. It might not be after they cut camps and stuff like that.
Maybe not. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Next pick, I'm going to struggle with the first name.
I know how to pronounce it. We got a pronunciation guide. It's Khalid.
Khalid Hudson.
Yes.
Thank you, pronouncer guy. So I watched some film of this guy. The position they list him at is called the Viper position at Michigan, where he played. It's really just a 3-4 style outside linebacker.
Well, what it is it's a dime linebacker on steroids. That's
right.
What it is.
Because he's smaller. He's only 224, so he's not a 250 type. But his role is very much like a 3-4 linebacker, where you're paying him to cover a slot or a tight end, and you're worried about him rushing the passer. Other than that, those are his roles, and he lines up outside edge a lot. Very good pass rusher from what I saw. Maybe not elite speed as a pass rusher, but the one thing I noticed was he's very good at getting behind the offensive line quickly, and that just kind of puts a little chaos in the quarterback's life.
This dude is strong.
Yeah.
30 bench press reps. That is an enormous number. 30 bench press. I actually think he's probably going to end up being an in-the-box safety.
Kind of. I mean, he actually came to college as a safety, and they converted him to linebacker over his time there.
Because I don't think he's got great coverage skills, to be perfectly honest. I mean, he explicitly said in his post-draft comments that he's very comfortable in coverage. Quote, unquote, I'm really comfortable in coverage. I did it a lot at Michigan. I'm comfortable playing deep safety. I'm comfortable in just being on the field and just being a difference maker.
He started out as a safety, so he should be comfortable in coverage.
But in the NFL, I think he's probably an in-the-box safety who may end up, his fate may be being a rotational guy for Landon Collins. I think
he's a lot of maybe a little different from the money backer role that we've seen since he rushes the passer more. But I kind of could see that kind of weird role with him.
The interesting part about this guy is that he was known as a punt blocker. He was Michigan's dedicated punt blocker. He's spoken about it to the media multiple times. A quote from the USA Today. They asked him about, and this is going back to last year. This is not a post-draft quote, but from the USA Today. I take a lot of pride in that. I work every day, every practice with Coach Partridge, who must have been his college coach.
Special teams coach, I assume,
trying to perfect my craft. Big plays at the end of the game, those are game-changing plays, and I pride myself on making game-changing plays. It's just important to the team. It's just important to myself also. I think they drafted this guy to be a special teams star.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of that, and I think because the role he would fit doesn't really mesh with traditional, 4-3.
No, not really. But I think he's probably an in-the-box safety at the end of the day. In the NFL. And he's another, but this is a common theme. He's a playmaker.
And versatile. That's the other big thing.
Versatile playmaker. Yeah. Have we heard this before? Every single pick. Versatile playmaker. I guess you can't call a left tackle playmaker, but I mean all these other guys playmakers.
Right.
That's what they wanted. That's what they did.
There's still 5 positions in the NFL that really can't be versatile these days, and those are the linemen. But they're kind of stuck.
Even then, if you can play tackle and guard at an effective high level, that's
the most versatile you can get. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I am going to be interested to kind of keep an eye on him because, the special teams thing stands out, and
that's your thing. You get off on special teams.
And I think he's the one to watch for this. But also just that weird ability that he has to kind of, like I said, he gets in the backfield and gets around guys really quick.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to watch. Let's move on to the other defensive guy they drafted right after him. Oh, well, I guess there's 2 more still. Cameron Curl. Arkansas, 6'1", 206, safety / corner, more of a safety, really. Kind of an interesting guy to watch. I don't know if, from what I read, people felt like he was a bit of a letdown last season.
Yeah.
But he's one of these safeties who's not really a free safety, not really a strong safety from what I could tell. Like, he doesn't play in the box very well, but he's not a true free safety at the same time.
I think he's probably more of a cover 2 style zone safety.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. But you're going to see him play back. He's not going to come down very often.
You want the funniest thing about him?
Sure.
This is the funniest thing. This dude was suspended for the final game of his sophomore season. Do you know why?
Yes, I do know why. Tell people why.
For socializing with the Mississippi State cheerleaders.
Right.
That's like a boss move right there.
Before the game, he was flirting with the cheerleaders for the other team, so his coaches had to suspend him.
Which is just so hilarious, and just it's just great. Now, he addressed this in his post-draft comments. Somebody asked him about it. He said, that was just a little misunderstanding. They asked for a picture. Just wanted to take a picture with him, Which, but regardless, I think that's just really, really funny.
It is funny, but here's the thing. Why are they asking you for a picture? Come on. That's your excuse?
Yeah. No, you were flirting with the cheerleaders. Just say it. You were flirting with the cheerleaders. I mean,
right.
Come on.
I saw a cute girl, and I said, okay.
Okay, so in terms of football, he's experienced.
Yeah.
3-year starter in the SEC. He's for University of Arkansas. He's 34 games over 3 years, 175 tackles. He doesn't have an elite athletic profile. Ran a 4.6. He is a pretty strong dude, 24 bench press reps, which is a lot for a safety, but he doesn't have a massive athletic profile. This is why I say he's probably not a true free safety, as you said.
Because he started out as a corner, too, I could kind of just see him getting one of those universal DB backup roles. Yeah, we've seen that in the past.
Yeah, possibly so. He's another guy who's going to have to produce on special teams, probably to stick around, immediately. But I think his fate probably is rotate in as a cover 2, safety. And for those of you who don't know, in a cover 2, the safety split the deep middle, or the deep part of the field,
right? In
most situations, and so I think he probably has the range and ability to do that probably best out of anything. So that's why I view him.
If you're thinking about this logically and kind of assigning people roles and situations, if Landon Collins comes out for a play on like 3rd and long, this is the guy you put in there to, fill in because he'll be better in that deep.
Because Landon isn't really a cover 2 split
back.
No,
Landon
safety.
Is the perfect in the box guy.
Landon is almost a linebacker.
Right, exactly. Which is, fine because he's very good at that. But this guy will be good in that kind of rotation and probably filling in for the other free safety. We don't really know who's going to be our free safety now, which is interesting. That's going to be an open competition.
Davis, the guy they brought in,
right?
Sean Davis, not Sean. What's his first name?
I know who you're talking about. I don't remember his first name.
It is Sean Davis. Sean Davis has a more athleticism in him, but he has a very serious tackling problem, and that's why he hasn't been able to stick around.
Right. It's an open competition at free safety.
Yeah, I think so. Davis obviously is the vet, and so he's going to be number 1 up front. But, I don't think he's got his position solidified, and he's on a 1-year contract.
Right, and then I think we still have Everett, right?
Yeah, and Jeremy Reeves is hanging around, too. So, there's a couple other guys. Troy Apke is there for whatever good that does. I don't think
he can run fast. That's what. That's all.
Yeah, he can run in a straight line very fast.
Right. Troy Apke is prototypical, just going to play special teams guy. Is what he is.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, let's move to the last guy we drafted real quick, and that is North Carolina State defensive end James Smith Williams, 6'4".
That's the most boring name in the history of names.
Other than the fact that he's got 3 of them, and I'm sure he has a middle name somewhere in there.
It's probably John.
Right. Very, very blah name. Right?
Yeah.
6'4", 265. I watched some film of him. I don't see it. Like, this guy, I'm sure he'll be here for camp. I don't see him making the team right off the bat.
He's got a lot of competition is the problem. I think Jordan Brailford from last year, who was on IR all year, Jordan Brailford has talent. I'm a big Jordan Brailford fan. Nate Orchard has talent. He's got a lot of competition at defensive end. The thing about Smith Williams, though, is more that he just could not stay healthy in college. He's a very, very intelligent guy. He's a cerebral academic type. Very, high grades, high academic test scores, all that stuff. Very smart. Did an internship at IBM. Has a job offer at IBM, which he may need to take if he gets cut, as you suggest.
You're going to get your rookie contract, which comes with a little bonus. I don't know what it is for a late 7th round pick.
It's not a lot for a late 7th round.
But hey, Steve, it's probably still like $60,000 or something. Which, if you gave me $60,000 when I was 21 years old, I would take it. I don't know about you. I could have used $60,000 out of college.
Well, I was a commissioned military officer when I was 21.
So you probably weren't making much more than that anyway.
I wasn't making anywhere near that.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I would have been in a poverty line if
right.
you had measured that out. Okay, but Smith Williams, so very smart, very high leadership qualities, praised for his character by his coaches. He needs to stay healthy. I mean, he only played 29 games in 5 years in college.
Yeah, he's got a health issue, and he's not exceptionally fast. He's a decent bull rusher. I just don't see much there that makes me think he'll make the team.
Yeah, I mean, he's the back of the draft. They took a flyer on a dude who's a very smart guy, good guy, mature, who will come in and work hard, and so they took a flyer on him.
Yeah.
It's not a need. You don't fill needs in the 7th round, by the way. For those of you who think teams draft for need in the 7th round, they don't, okay?
No.
They're taking flyers on guys I think may work out, period.
I mean, the only kind of stuff you ever see is, hey, we think this guy could be a good special team starter for us right away. Those are the kind of spots you might fill.
Yeah, but this is just a guy, they had him highly rated. If he doesn't work out, it was only a back of the draft, middle 7th round pick, and so what. But good guy, very smart guy, great leadership, great character, works hard, has options and still wants to play football, so they know he's going to work hard.
Yeah, like I said, man, make that little bit of cash you could get as a draft pick. Why not?
Yeah, this guy does not need football, and yet he wants to play football, and so that bodes well for him. So, I mean, the key with him, stay healthy. What can you say?
Yeah, maybe I'll be wrong, but I just didn't see anything. But so that does it for the draft picks. But this show is more than just the surface, because we care. We have Steve and I have been scouring the internet, looking at who the Redskins have picked up as undrafted free agents. Let's start with the biggest name first, and that is that because the Redskins didn't draft a tight end, they were able to grab LSU's tight end Thaddeus Moss, who's been the big name, I think, of these kind of tight end prospects, mainly because of his father, obviously, the great Randy Moss, who's arguably one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. Or not, I don't even think that's arguable.
No, he is one of the greatest.
He is one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. Arguable if he's top 3, top 5.
He might be the best deep threat in the history of football.
And just a freak of nature because of his size and everything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's So Thaddeus Moss is not his father. Let's be clear on that right away. He is a prototypical looking tight end in terms of body size, and so he doesn't have his father's height necessarily. I think he's 250-ish.
Well, no, he's not 250-ish. Actually, he was, I believe, 230.
230? Okay, so even smaller than that then.
Yeah.
Decent blocker, decent receiver, kind of just an all-around balanced tight end when you watch him play. He's not going to be a Jordan Reed freak of nature, splitting out, getting deep balls type. He's the guy that you have chip block and maybe he gets something and turns it into 5-10 yards. I think that's where he is in the NFL.
Yeah, listen, I mean, get over this right up front, people. Thaddeus Moss is not his father, as Alex said. His father, elite, all-time great speed and acceleration and burst.
Right.
At a height, what was he, 6'4", 6'5"?
I think he was 6'5", 6'6". So he was a big
tall
guy. Double check that.
I mean, and a playmaker. Thaddeus Moss is none of those things. He gets a lot of attention because, one, he went to LSU, and two, his name is Moss. If you put Thaddeus Smith at some other school, he might be drafted and he might have been a player and all that still, but he wouldn't be getting nearly as much attention. And that's why it's a lot of it's just confirmation bias with this guy.
Right.
There's a reason, and plus he has a foot injury. That's the other thing that dropped him in the draft. But here's what I watched I watched some of his film. Here's what I saw. This is a guy who, based on his height profile and his last name, you'd think he would maybe fill like a joker role because he's actually small. And by the way, I was wrong. He is 250. He's a little bit bulky, not 230.
And his father, 6'4", ran a 4.3.
Yeah, right.
He's not that.
6'4". I thought he was maybe listed at 6'5", and is really 6'4", not 6'6". But Thaddeus is only 6'2". He's a little bit small. A little bit short for a traditional inline tight end role, but that's truly what he is.
Right.
He's not a playmaker. He's not going to run away from anybody like Jordan Reed did. Jordan Reed wasn't a blocker. Thaddeus is a better blocker, but he's not a great blocker. I think he's almost kind of a tweener in the tight end world, which is why I think part of the reason why he dropped in the draft. Again, you'd think Joker with a guy like this, but he's not really a joker because he's not a playmaker. He has great hands, but he benefited a lot from being at LSU, which was killing everybody, more so than he was getting open, on his own.
Well, when I kind of look at him play and I kind of think of his size and everything, I see more of a Chris Cooley type where he's he's not elite at any one thing. He's just going to be okay at a lot of things.
Well, yeah.
He's a truly balanced tight end, which we haven't had in a long time. The Redskins have either gone extreme with the Jordan Reed types, or occasionally, and this was probably, you're going back to Shanahan, they would have that one big bulldozer blocker, the guy who was 270 or whatever.
And that's not him either.
Yeah,
and by the way, when I'm saying joker, for those of you who don't know, the joker tight end is the Jordan Reed pass catcher type.
Right.
That's what joker is. And that's just not him, but you'd think because he's Randy Moss's kid, that would be him. But you got to adjust your expectations, folks. That's not what he is. I think Chris Cooley's, a good comp for a position, That's more what he is. He's less Randy Moss, more Cooley, if he fills his destiny.
Right. And the thing he's got going for him, best thing he's got going for him is he's coming to a team where I think he could, even as an undrafted rookie, probably be your number 2 tight end right off the bat because there's just not a lot of competition at the position.
Right.
And he could fill that need fairly quickly.
The one thing he does have, by the way, is great hands. He does. Yeah. He catches all everything. I mean, he does have his dad's hands.
He has his dad's hands, which I'm sure his dad kind of taught him well.
Right.
The other thing that I saw or I've seen written about him is he would be a very good H-back right off the bat, which is kind of that between fullback and tight end role.
Right.
For those who don't remember what an H-back is, because we haven't had one forever.
and Alex loves them.
Well, I like fullbacks. I don't necessarily love H-backs. I like fullbacks.
Anybody feeling close to that role. Alex
it helps with the run game. That's what I care about.
I just think he's more of a name. He's getting all this attention because he's a Moss more so than anything else. And I'm glad he's on the team because, like you said, they need tight ends.
Right.
And he can fill more of a traditional tight end role, hopefully, than anybody else we have. Hale Hentages is probably the other guy on the roster who can do that, but he's less pass catcher. He's not a dynamic anything.
Right. And Jeremy Sprinkle is more of your run blocking type, as we've seen.
Yeah, I think personally, the team gave Logan Thomas. Or is it Tom? I can never get it right.
I know who you're
Logan
talking about.
Thomas or Thomas Logan. It's Logan Thomas.
Right.
I never get his name right. They gave him a pretty big contract. They paid him $6.5 million for 2 years, so he's a starter.
Right.
He's going to be the starter, but Moss has a chance to come in here and grab a role for sure.
Yeah.
And he can throw Thomas off the roster.
Or at least swap and become the number 1, number 2 thing. Yeah,
right. So he has a chance here. This is a good opportunity for a tight end.
Right.
I just don't want people to expect Randy Moss level playmaker because that's just not close. He's not that at all. That's not what he is in any way.
The other thing you were saying, him dropping out of the draft. The other reason that they say this happened, he had a fracture, bone fracture that because they couldn't do visits. Teams couldn't get the good medical and figure out how bad that is or how he's recovering, things like that.
One great thing about having Thaddeus Moss on the roster, though, is his dad's going to be hanging around the Redskins a lot. Yeah. And that's only a good thing. Even if have him rub off in any way, shape, or form on the wide receivers is a good thing. Even just to get to listen to this, to Moss talk. Because Moss, for all his cantankerousness, is a smart guy.
Oh, yeah.
Very smart guy, and he has a lot of great insights. And so even having him around the Redskins, I think, is a good thing.
And if you want to kind of look at the other guy we drafted at wide receiver, Antonio Gandy Golden, he's got a fairly similar body type to Randy Moss, if you think about it.
A little bit, yeah.
Not as fast, but similar body.
Right.
All right, so let's go through. We have 3 more names here that were undrafted free agents. Do you want to do the wide receivers, or do we want to go to Steven Montez?
No, let's go to Montez.
All right, Steven Montez. Fastest quarterback in this draft class. Went undrafted. If you watch the film, you can see why. Doesn't really have an NFL caliber arm. He can throw a nice looking deep ball. It just doesn't have the zip you need. But
I actually disagree with you a little bit on
that.
I think he does have an NFL caliber arm, and I think it's the other things that kept him from being drafted. I had him ranked number 9 out of the quarterbacks when I did our quarterback,
which is about right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think he does have an NFL caliber. His problem is inconsistency, accuracy,
decision making kind of stuff.
Decision making. I don't think he really has the experience and the ability yet to really be able to read the field, and he's inconsistent in that way. And so I think had a hard time coming off as number one read a lot, and I think that's why he didn't get drafted. And when we say he's fast, he's not Kyler Murray
a runner
level fast. No. I mean this is a big guy. He's 6'4", 230 pounds. Ran a 4.68 40 at the combine. So he's not truly a true mobile quarterback. He's just as fairly athletic and mobile. Don't mistake him for Lamar Jackson because he's the opposite of that.
But what I kind of see is you probably are bringing this guy on to be a camp arm first, probably go on your practice squad after that.
You and I are big developmental quarterback fans. And so I think he's a perfect guy for this because he has the natural ability. In my view, you don't think so, that's fine, but I think he has the natural ability. He just needs somebody. He just needs a lot of coaching and time to be able to develop. And I think
I don't think you can't develop him. I think that there's a lot that needs to be worked on, which is fine.
Absolutely.
And I also think, he doesn't have Lamar Jackson speed, but he has enough speed where if he's on your practice squad, you can have him simulate a mobile quarterback pretty well, which is...
Yeah, I mean, you might want to put like an Antonio Gibson in there if you're playing Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
not Steven Montez, but I get your point.
Against a guy like a Russell Wilson or, Carson Wentz, I think this guy's got the perfect kind of ability to simulate what they do, is my point.
Yeah, and let's be clear. Clearly, Thad Moss and Steven Montez were priority free agents because the Redskins grabbed them within 30 minutes of the end of the draft.
Right.
So they had been talking to him before the draft ended, clearly, and said, we want to sign you if you don't get drafted, and that's what happened. Those two, we haven't gotten their contracts yet, but I bet you those two guys are the ones that got bonuses.
Well, there have been 4 guys that have been signed at this point. I'm assuming they are signed, not, hey, here's a camp invite.
That was what was put out, was that they were signed to contracts.
Right. We've seen that a lot. People will say, "Oh, I'm signing with the Redskins," and then you find out a day later, no, you didn't sign. You're just going to be invited to the rookie camp.
That's not Moss and Montez in particular were priority free agents. I would bet my life that they were signed to legit contracts.
I think so too. They probably got a 1-year deal kind of thing. Whatever.
Most of these undrafted free agents don't get any bonus money.
Right.
I bet you those two got bonus money.
Right.
Look, Montez, I think, is a perfect guy to bring in to be your developmental quarterback. Because the things you can't teach are size and NFL caliber arm. I'm not saying the dude has got John Elway's arm. I'm saying I think he's got a big enough arm to be a legit NFL player, a legit NFL arm. He just needs work, and I think he can get there. To maybe someday develop into Dwayne Haskins' backup.
Yeah, that's where I see that going to. Ideal situation is he becomes your number 2 in a year or two.
Right.
And when I said he doesn't have an NFL caliber arm, Colt McCoy didn't have an NFL caliber arm, and he's still in the league.
And I think Montez is a much stronger arm.
I think he's got a better arm than McCoy. He doesn't have the zip that you'll want from a starter. I thought
he did, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. That's all well and good, I guess. All right, so the next one, I'm going to be rooting for this guy, Steve. Temple's wide receiver, Isaiah Wright.
Talk to us. Preach.
Yeah, all right, so let me tell you, because I've watched a lot of this guy. If Isaiah Wright they had 2 go-to receivers the last couple of years, and he was your 1A, 1B kind of guy. Wright's greatest skill set at Temple was he's a guy who can get open. He's one of these receivers who seems to cut hard and create just massive amounts of space for himself. Not going to necessarily break away a lot, but he on third down, he's that guy you want to go to because he'll somehow create 5 yards of separation between him and any defender, and you can just lob the ball his direction. That's his skill set. That's obviously against college in the AAC, not the ACC. So he's going to go against higher levels of competition now in the NFL. But if you want to know what he does well, that's it. He's the guy who will get you your 10 yards when you need 10 yards, and he'll be open and be able to get some yards after the catch.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know much about Isaiah Wright. I haven't watched a single minute of his film. Alex has. What I will say is he's fast. He's fast, has size, 6'1", 215-ish, sub 4.5 40. So he's another guy who could potentially be a multifaceted, versatile weapon type, and that's why they sign guys like this. That's the mold. We said this over and over and over again on this show. Versatile playmaker weapon, and that's what all these guys are. And Wright's another one. He didn't go to the combine. He wasn't highly regarded. So we'll see. But Alex is the one who knows far more about him.
Yes, because I watch, obviously, a lot of Temple football.
Right.
All right, last guy I have on the list, and I don't know if we'll want to check and see if anyone's been signed since we started. I doubt it. But the last guy on the list, another wide receiver out of Missouri, this one's kind of a head-scratcher for me. His name is Jonathan Johnson. Another generic name that Steve loves.
I know. I had to think it's funny. Yeah. I mean, it's like James Smith Williams.
Right.
Which is fine. James is a fine name.
Right.
Jonathan Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you could be Jonathan, too, and it'd be fine.
Yeah, it'd be the same. That's why, like Logan Thomas. Is it Thomas Logan or Logan Thomas?
Right, exactly.
Mix it up.
This is coming from you, too, by the way, who has one of the more generic names.
Well, but
yours is also.
Not get into that.
Yeah.
I've told you what the meaning behind that.
Yeah, I understand it. All right, so anyway, when I looked at this guy, he's a slot receiver. Lot of shallow crossing route type stuff. In the playbook for him when he was at Missouri. Not great hands, didn't look particularly fast. I think he's really here just to be kind of like a camp target for, Montez or who's the quarterback we traded for from, why am I blanking?
Kyle Allen.
Yeah, Kyle Allen. He's going to be here for those guys to kind of have someone to throw to. I don't see much after that, but, that's the kind of guy you're going to have to sign for rookie camps and stuff like that anyway.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about him.
Yeah.
Frankly. This is probably the last time we'll ever talk about Mr. Jonathan Johnson.
Right. Until he's in the one of the non-arena football leagues, and I'll be raving about him. That's his future,
if
kids.
If there ever is another non-arena football league, why would anybody start one ever?
There's like 4 of them going right now.
Why?
Because that's just how it works. There's the National Arena League, there's the Indoor Football League, and then there's the AAFL.
I mean, if you're into losing money, this is the thing to do, but I don't understand why else anyone would start, unless they are a masochist and enjoy flushing money down a toilet.
I think there's some of that.
Start a little football league.
Well, those have been going around forever. There's like 200 teams like that. It's very weird. But anyway, that's your future, Jonathan, so get ready.
Mrs. Johnson may be listening to this.
So I doubt it.
Everybody a little hope. Can we give him a little hope? Okay, so here's the hope about him, all right? This dude is big time fast. This is why they like him. He's tiny, okay? He's wee.
He's a scat back type, yeah.
He's 5'8", 170 pounds, runs a sub 4.40. He's in Terry McLaurin's speed level in terms of speed. So is he raw? Probably so. I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about that. He's small. He's probably a raw route runner. Otherwise, he would have been drafted. But he's a really, really, really fast dude. So when you have really fast speed and you're a receiver, you're going to get a shot. And so that's his shot. Can he use that speed to catch balls at a regular rate and run decent routes? If you can, you're going to get a chance. If you don't, you're going to be gone.
I kind of see him very similar to Steve Sims. I think that's what his role was.
Faster than Steve Sims.
Well, but I see a similar role. Like, the best play I saw him do in the highlights of him I watched was the kind of end-around stuff.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I saw a lot of drops from him in one.
His problem is just, he drops a lot of balls. Because you saw that. He's tiny by NFL standards. But when you run a 4.4-ish,
right.
Slightly sub 4.4, I mean, you're going to get a shot. And so that's why they like him. He's a playmaker with a ton of speed.
And I'm scanning. I haven't seen any more pickups yet.
No, me neither. We're recording this on Sunday morning. Those are the 4 names we have. The Redskins have a history of not announcing them until later, so you kind of have to watch out. For the Twitter wire.
You got to scan rumor mills. Yeah.
We are doing this for you, though, people.
Yeah.
We are doing this for you, so you don't have to do that. All you have to do is check the webpage, our webpage, and we have by the time you hear this, it won't be at the top of the page, but it's there. We'll continue to update that page.
As we see them, we'll add people. So, Steve, any thoughts post-draft? I mean, we're over time, but we knew that was going to happen because this was going to be a bigger show. I got a couple, but I'll want to go to yours first. You have
Me first? Okay. My first thought, because I've been preaching the number 2 pick thing for months. I hope Chase works out. He should work out. I still would have rather gone a different direction, but I do trust Ron Rivera that he knows what he wants. So, I'm glad he's here. Still would have wished it would have been Isaiah or Kuda, but whatever. It's done. What's done is done now. But my overall thought here is they drafted a bunch of versatile playmakers and signed. That's the hallmark of this team, this coaching staff, clearly in terms of what they want. And that's what every single one of these guys were. Yeah. Versatile, speed, playmakers. So we drastically improved our team speed on this draft, drastically improved the number of offensive weapons. The running back group, you guys are on notice. You guys are on notice because there's a type that they want. I kind of wonder, frankly, if Adrian Peterson might not make this team, depending on how camp goes.
Yeah, I mean, we're a ways away from that kind of decision being made. Of course,
right, and that's a whole other show. But
yeah,
I kind of wonder. They've got a lot of running. You want to hear the name? Here's all the running backs. They have a ton of running backs now. I mean.
And they kind of all are going to fit into 2 categories now. You're either the power back, which is Adrian Peterson, Darius Geis, or you've got like 8 guys who are all going to be receivers.
Yeah, Peyton Barber, Josh Ferguson, Antonio Gibson, Darius Geis, Bryce Love, J.D. McKissick, Adrian Peterson. Love is the only one signed through 2020. We don't even know what his health status is. Nobody seems to know. Barber signed through 2021. Geis, rookie contract through 2021. Peterson is
1 year deal, I think.
1 year thing. So, I mean, I think we could see they're going to take whoever performs the best out of this group, not named Peterson because he's old and he'll be gone in a year and probably no matter what. But the top 3 guys are going to be back and the rest of them are going to be gone.
It's a interesting. That's going to be a lot of competition. I see a lot of competition at wide receiver now. I mean, we got a lot of young guys. The guys who were here last year, they added 2, I would say, very decent wide receivers with Wright, and I'm going to always have to double-check Gandy Golden because it's a long-ass name.
Listen, they've got 13 receivers on the roster. Now, if you count Johnson and count Wright, and then they drafted Gandy Golden, and then whatever Antonio Gibson is, he could be 14.
Yeah.
They've got, don't forget, other than the guys we just mentioned, Emmanuel Hall, Kelvin Harmon, Darvin Kidsey, Cody Latimer, Terry McLaurin, Trey Quinn, Cam Sims, Steven Sims, Jordan Veazey, and Jester Wee.
Right.
Lots and lots and lots of competition. They'll probably keep 6, you would think. 5 or 6, probably 6.
And I would say the only guy who's for sure locked up his spot is McLaurin right now. Everyone else is in a competition.
And maybe Steve Sims, I'd maybe give him an upper hand.
Maybe,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, but certainly the rest of these guys are in a competition for sure.
So my only other thought when I looked at how this draft kind of shook out for the Redskins, they addressed the line position that they needed finally in the 4th round. We've got a tight end in the undrafted market. I was surprised they didn't draft one, initially. But I guess it makes sense now that I
think it was just a matter that their board just didn't line up.
Yeah, I'm getting that feeling that this was. They really went way more towards best player available than we're used to seeing.
Well, they did, but they drafted who they wanted. They drafted a bunch of need guys. We knew they were going to go after playmakers. We knew they needed a tackle. We knew they needed DBs. They didn't draft a corner, which surprised me, but they did grab a safety.
That surprised me a lot that they didn't draft. But then again, think of how Rivera always built his defenses in Carolina. He does not care about cornerback. He was I mean, he has them.
Like that, but
they never paid them though. Like that's why we got Josh Norman. Is they said no, we're not paying big money to corners. Like that's his philosophy.
Because frankly, if you're playing a cover 2 a lot, I mean, you need good corners, but a cover 2 in a lot of situations has the running back cover or the corner covering the flats.
Right.
And not running down the field in press man. That happens sometimes depending on the offensive formation, but that's really why is if you're going to play a lot of cover 2, that maybe that's why they didn't like Jeff Okudah as much as Chase Young for that reason possibly.
It could very well be a scheme thing. Yeah. And like I said, I think in Carolina, his philosophy was more about the front 7 and safety play than the corner play, which we're gonna. And I think we as commentators are going to have to adjust a lot of what we think about football to how Rivera's building his team coming forward.
By the way, I didn't do. I did not forget about a listener poll. I intentionally did not do it because really the only poll there is would be, "What do you think about the draft?" And what I didn't want to hear is 18,000 Chase Young is a generational talent comments, and so I just couldn't do it. So I intentionally left it out.
Well, it would have also have been everyone just giving us an A. You know that
exactly. It would have been a 95% A grade no matter what.
Right.
And oh my God, we got a generational talent, which at this point makes me want to shoot myself when I hear this.
Right.
So.
What we'll do next week is, what do you think of our undrafted free agents poll?
And it'll be who?
Yeah. 13 votes. All of them
for
who?
Don't know. Don't know.
Right. Folks, thank you for listening. Of course, this show, hopefully we start getting some more Redskins stuff going on now that at post-draft. It's going to be very tricky with all this, everyone's quarantining thing because we're not getting the training camps we were hoping for.
Hopefully that's going to end soon.
Hopefully that ends soon.
The NBA is coming back.
Yeah.
They're opening up facilities, so let's hope.
Yeah, let's just hope, or at least that we get some interesting, Dwayne Haskins practicing at home, throwing at like a brick, trying to throw a ball over some mountains there.
We do have some couple interesting guests coming up.
Yes, we do.
I haven't quite scheduled them, but we have some interesting guests in the hopper, so look for that.
Including maybe some former players? We don't know.
Maybe so. And hopefully Jamal comes out of his bubble.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he will. Jamal in his bubble. All right,
maybe
folks.
it's the dog. Maybe he was having dog problems again.
The dog's in the bubble. All right, folks. Thanks for listening, and hope you have a great week. Later. Cut.